Most people think the reason they're not respected is because they're not good enough yet, not impressive enough, not strong enough, not accomplished enough. But the harder truth is this. A lot of the time, people do not look down on you because you lack value. They look down on you because you're sending signals that make them believe they can. This is not about your looks. It is not about how polished you sound. It is not even about how talented you are. It's about how you show up, how you respond, how you let other people handle your time, your energy, and your kindness. There are people who are genuinely kind, highly capable, and deeply valuable. Yet somehow, wherever they go, they get interrupted, overlooked, talked over, pushed aside, and treated like their priorities matter less, not because they have no worth, but because, without realizing it, they've been teaching the world how to treat them. And people are always learning. They don't just listen to your words. They read your signals. They notice the hesitation before you speak. They notice how quickly you apologize. They notice how often you laugh things off when someone crosses a line. They notice how easily you drop your own plans the second somebody else wants something from you. And from those tiny moments, they form one very big conclusion. This person will bend. That's how it starts. Not with one dramatic moment. Not with one obvious betrayal. Not with someone announcing that they don't respect you. It starts quietly, in small interactions, in little habits, in the energy you repeat every single day. And if you've ever felt like you didn't really do anything wrong, yet somehow people still treat you like you're easy to dismiss, comment one below, because that moment matters. That's the moment you stop blaming your worth and start noticing your signals. A lot of people confuse kindness with being easy to push back. They think they're being graceful, keeping the peace, being mature, being understanding, being the bigger person. But if your kindness always comes with swallowing your discomfort, ignoring your own needs, and constantly making room for other people at your own expense, then what people see is no longer kindness. What they see is an unlocked door. That's why the exact same behavior can be read in two completely different ways. Two people can both stay quiet. One feels grounded, the other feels afraid. Two people can both help others. One does it from choice. The other does it because they're scared of disappointing people. And other people can feel that difference faster than you think. That is where everything starts to change. Because the second you realize that respect does not come from waiting for other people to become better, you stop looking outward first. You start looking at the signals you've been sending every day. Not to become cold, not to become fake, not to become some power-playing version of yourself, but to stop betraying your own value through habits you thought were normal. The first mistake is this. You're too predictable. The human brain loves categories. Strong, soft, important, forgettable, easy target, not an easy target. And once someone puts you in a box, they usually keep treating you according to that box, until you do something different enough to force them to update the image they have of you. So, if for years you've been the agreeable one, the easy one, the one who always says yes, the one who always says it's okay, the one who takes the harder part so other people can stay comfortable, there's a good chance you've been placed in an invisible box. Not because you're weak, not because you're bad, not because you have no substance, but because you became too obvious, too readable, too easy to predict. People know you'll say yes before they even ask. They know you won't make it a big deal. They know you'll probably let it slide. So they don't even pause before pushing past your boundaries. And that pause matters, because in every environment, the people who are consistently respected are not always the most talented people in the room. A lot of the time, they are the ones who are harder to casually categorize. They have clarity. They have edges. They are warm, but not endlessly available. They are calm, but not passive. They are kind, but not easy to use. They make other people stop for a second and think, should I say that? Should I ask that? Should I push this? Will this person go along with it? Or not? That hesitation is powerful. That hesitation is often where respect begins. So the first step in changing how people treat you is not becoming intimidating. You do not need to become scary. You do not need to suddenly act aggressive. You do not need to build some fake alpha personality. It's simpler than that. You just need to create a little controlled surprise. If you usually stay silent in meetings, speak up once. Not for a speech, not to dominate the room, just one clear sentence with a real point of view. If you're the person who always says yes when people pile work onto you, try this. I can't take that on today. That's it. If you usually go along with things just to keep the peace, pick one small moment and say, I see that differently. Simple, calm, clear. And that tiny shift does something most people underestimate. It forces an update. People start revising the version of you they've been carrying in their heads, not because you became someone else overnight, but because for the first time, they realize you no longer fit neatly inside the old box. The second mistake is this. You treat your time like it's cheap. This signal is incredibly powerful, and a lot of people miss it. You respond too fast. You show up too fast. You rearrange your life too fast. You drop what you're doing too fast. Someone texts, you open it immediately. Someone calls your name, you snap to attention immediately. Someone needs something, and you start reorganizing your schedule before even checking what you need first. You think that makes you helpful, responsive, reliable, generous, and sometimes, yes, it comes from a good heart. But in a lot of people's eyes, what they learn from that behavior is something very different. This person's time is not that valuable, and the more you live like that, the more invisible the cost becomes. You become too available, too easy to access, too easy to interrupt, too easy to move around. And when your presence is always available, people stop feeling the weight of it. When your replies are always instant, people stop respecting your pace. When your schedule is always flexible for everyone else, your life starts to feel movable, negotiable, secondary. That's why some people end up feeling taken for granted all the time. They are always there, always responsive, always adjusting, always making it work. And eventually, people stop seeing it as generosity. They start seeing it as the default. The people who carry real weight in life are not always the richest, not always the loudest, not always the ones with the highest title, but many of them share one thing. The way they treat their time teaches other people that it matters. They do not panic and run toward every request. They do not give off the feeling that they are always free. They do not hand everyone unlimited access to them. And no, that does not make them cold. It means they behave like their life deserves priority too. That changes everything. When someone calls your name, you do not need to whip your head around like you owe them instant presence. Finish the sentence you're saying. Finish the task you're doing. Then turn. When a message comes in, you do not need to prove you're a good person with response speed. Wait a few minutes. Reply when you're actually free. That is allowed. You do not have to perform availability to earn love, approval, or respect. And if you're realizing right now that you've let people spend your time way too freely, comment one below, because just noticing that pattern is already a major shift. The third mistake is this. You apologize so much that it becomes a way of shrinking yourself. There are people who say sorry all day long. Sorry for asking. Sorry for needing help. Sorry for speaking up. Sorry for interrupting. Sorry for taking up space. Sorry for bringing something up. Sorry for having an opinion. Sorry for existing in a way that might inconvenience somebody. And over time, that apology stops being politeness. It becomes a signal that says, I'm not fully sure I'm allowed to be here. That is what weakens your presence. It's not that people hate the word sorry. It's not that apologies are bad. Real apologies matter. But when you use apology language in situations that do not require it, you quietly place yourself in the role of the burden. You frame your presence like a problem. You frame your request like an inconvenience. You frame your perspective like something that needs forgiveness before it can even be heard. And that changes how people receive you. The more used you are to apologizing for normal things, the harder it becomes to hold boundaries when something truly important happens. Because your nervous system already learned the pattern. Step back, soften yourself, make room, smooth things over, make sure nobody's uncomfortable, shrink first. So, little by little, you start living like your needs always come second. People with self-respect do apologize when they are wrong. They take responsibility. They own mistakes. They repair when repair is needed. but they do not apologize for their rightful presence. They do not apologize for asking a necessary question. They do not apologize for stating a reasonable need. They do not apologize for having boundaries. That is why changing your language can change your position. Instead of saying, "Sorry, I'm late," try, "Thank you for waiting." Instead of, "Sorry to bother you," try, "Do you have a minute?" Instead of, "Sorry, but I think," try, "I think." That sounds small, but small language shifts create major identity shifts because every sentence teaches people how to place you. The fourth mistake is this: you speak too fast, react too fast, and explain too much. This is where a lot of people lose their weight without even realizing it. They are afraid of silence, afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of being judged, afraid that if they don't explain enough, people will assume the worst. So they fill every space with words. They answer too quickly. They defend themselves too quickly. They over-explain. They add detail after detail after detail. They keep talking in the hope that the other person will finally understand them. But the more you do that, the more you sound like someone asking to be approved. People feel this immediately. When you speak in a rush, you sound defensive. When you explain too much, you sound like you need permission to be believed. When somebody takes a shot at you and you react instantly, you let them know they touched a nerve. And the moment that happens, the balance shifts. Weight does not come from how much you say, it comes from whether you can tolerate the pause. Some people walk into a room and barely speak, yet everyone feels their presence. Why? Because they are not scrambling to fill empty space. They are not rushing to rescue themselves. They are not overheating to prove they're not weak. They let their words land. That is power. The next time someone asks you a question, try counting to 2 before answering. Just 2 seconds. That tiny pause can completely change the energy you give off. It shows that you are not being dragged by the pressure to react immediately. It shows that you are choosing your response instead of being controlled by reflex. That matters more than most people realize. And when someone speaks to you with disrespect, do not explode, but do not laugh it off either. Look at them, stay calm, and say, "That was disrespectful," then stop. This is where a lot of people lose their strength again. They say the right sentence, and then ruin it by rushing in with explanations. They start talking about why it hurt, why it bothered them, why they feel upset, why the other person should understand. No, the silence after the sentence is what gives it force, because you already named the truth. You put the reality right there in the middle of the conversation. You did not ask for permission to feel what you feel. You did not beg them to validate it. You simply called it what it was. And a lot of people back off right there, because for the first time, they do not get what they wanted from you. Confusion, chaos, overreaction, self-defense, emotional scrambling. They were expecting access to your balance. You did not give it to them. If you've ever realized that you talk too fast or explain too much because you're scared of being judged, comment 1 below. You are not the only one who has lived that way for a long time. And now we get to the most important part, the real weapon, the one that changes the whole game. You have to be willing to walk away. This is one of the deepest rules in relationships, workplaces, social situations, and life in general. The more desperate you are to keep something, the easier it becomes for that thing to control you. The more afraid you are of losing someone, the more likely you are to accept bad treatment. The more afraid you are of losing your place, the more likely you are to swallow what should never be swallowed. The more afraid you are of conflict, the more likely you are to become a place where disrespect can settle in comfortably. That is why some people keep getting treated badly over and over again, and nothing ever really changes. Not because the other person has no idea they're causing pain. A lot of the time, they know. But they also know something else. You're not leaving. You might get upset. You might complain. You might cry. You might pull back for a bit. You might say you're hurt, but in the end, you stay. And once people know you will stay no matter how they act, they lose a major reason to change. That truth is painful, but it's also freeing, because it means you do not always need a perfect argument to win. Sometimes, the strongest move is not convincing. It is not explaining. It is not pleading. It is not performing your pain beautifully enough for the other person to finally get it. Sometimes the strongest move is simply this. Do not keep opening the door to that disrespect. Leave the conversation when it becomes degrading. Leave the room when someone tries to belittle you. Leave the dynamic where your boundaries keep getting tested like a joke. Leave the relationship that only works when you get smaller. Leave the environment that keeps asking you to betray yourself in exchange for belonging, quietly, clearly, and without a speech. That moment sends the strongest signal of all. I am no longer willing to pay with my self-respect just to keep this connection. And that changes the field instantly. Is it easy? No, because underneath the inability to walk away is usually not a lack of skill. It's fear. Fear of being left. Fear of being disliked. Fear of being seen as difficult. Fear of missing out. Fear of losing the opportunity. Fear of seeming like the one who failed. Fear that if you leave, you'll be alone with yourself and your own choices. But think about it honestly. Is staying somewhere that keeps wearing you down really a win? Is holding on to a relationship that only survives when you keep shrinking actually love? Is remaining in a conversation where you are repeatedly talked down to really maturity? No. A lot of the time, maturity looks like stopping. It looks like losing something small to protect something bigger, yourself. That is not weakness. That is alignment. That is self-respect in motion. And if you know, deep down, that you've stayed too long in a place that no longer respects you, comment 1 below. That is not you being dramatic. That is you finally telling yourself the truth. And here is the last part. You do not need to become scary to be respected. You do not need fake coldness. You do not need manipulative power moves. You do not need to act mysterious. You do not need to dominate people. You do not need to harden into someone unrecognizable. The real shift is not about becoming a stranger to yourself. It is about stopping the signals that keep betraying your value. Stop being so easy to predict. Stop treating your time like it is cheap. Stop apologizing for your rightful presence. Stop speaking too fast, over-explaining, and reacting on instinct. And, most importantly, stop staying in places that can only keep you if you become smaller. When the signal changes, the response changes. When the way you carry yourself changes, your position changes. When you stop teaching people to take you lightly, the ones who used to push your boundaries will have to adjust. Some people will respect you more. Some will be surprised. Some will feel uncomfortable with the new version of you. Some may even get irritated, and that is not always a bad sign. A lot of the time, that discomfort is proof. Proof that you are no longer playing the role of the easy target. Proof that your energy is no longer available in the same way. Proof that the old script is breaking, but do not try to change everything at once. That is the trap. A lot of people hear a message like this, feel called out by every part of it, and then try to rebuild their entire life in one day. That almost never lasts. Real change is quieter than that. The people who truly change are not the ones who go all in for 3 days and disappear by day 4. They are the ones who choose one pattern and change it for real. Maybe today, your one move is this. You do not reply immediately to a non-urgent message. Maybe it is this. You remove one unnecessary sorry from your sentence. Maybe it is this. You say, I can't take that on right now. Maybe it is this. You count to 2 before answering. Maybe it is this. You hold eye contact and calmly say, that was disrespectful. Maybe it is this. You walk away from a moment that the old version of you would have stayed in just to keep the peace. Just one thing. But do it for real, because respect is not built through one dramatic speech. It is not built through one emotional explosion. It is not built through one perfect comeback. It is built through small signals repeated consistently, until one day people are forced to understand. This person is not easy to dismiss anymore. This person is not easy to push around anymore. This person is not available for casual disrespect anymore. And that is how your world starts to change. Not because you became louder, not because you became meaner, not because you finally learned how to intimidate people, but because you stopped sending signals that told the world your value was negotiable. So if this video hit something real for you, comment one below. I want to know how many people have lived too long inside that invisible box and are finally ready to step out of it. And if you want to keep building a version of yourself that people can't casually disrespect anymore, subscribe to the channel. Not to hear a few words that make you feel strong for 5 minutes. But so, video by video, we can rebuild the way you show up, the way you hold your ground, the way you protect your self-respect without losing your kindness, the way you stop abandoning yourself just to be accepted. Go back out there. You do not need to be louder. You do not need to be harsher. You do not need to become someone fake. Just be more honest, more clear, more grounded, and stop letting people move through your life as if your presence carries no weight. You already have value. You already have substance. You already have worth. The only thing left is to stop sending signals that make the world think otherwise.